It's being called a historic breakthrough, a 10-year defense framework agreement between India and the United States of America that has been renewed. A symbol of trust, cooperation, and shared values in the Indo-Pacific. But look closer. Is this really a partnership or just another sales contract dressed up in the language of strategy? While Trump shakes hands with Modi, his heart seems to be in Beijing and Islamabad, not New Delhi. The timing is curious. A trade war still unresolved, tariffs choking Indian exports, and yet here comes a defense deal, promising interoperability, co-production, and shared goals. But where exactly is India in this picture? Is this framework a milestone for India's defense sector or a marketplace for America's arms industry? Hello and welcome. You're watching Statecraft with me, Geeta Mohan. Context first. India and the US have been locked in a bruising tariff war, 50% duties, falling exports, and zero breakthroughs in trade talks. The Trump administration has rewarded China with a 12 out of 10 truce and courted Pakistan with hugs, handshakes, and rare earth deals in Balochistan. Meanwhile, India gets a defense pact, signed with smiles but laced with strings. So here's the real question. When the US promises shared defense cooperation, is it talking about strategic trust or strategic sales? Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth called it a cornerstone for regional stability. Rajnath Singh, India's defense minister, called it a new era of cooperation. But behind those diplomatic soundbites lies an imbalance. The US boasts about India's successful integration of American systems. But what does India actually get in return, beyond expensive imports and vague talk of industrial cooperation? The so-called partnership feels less like two equals building security and more like one side writing the checks. Hegseth proudly listed America's pending major defense deals to India. But that's the key phrase, sales. Not technology transfers, not joint ownership, not manufacturing rights. Sales. And when Washington talks about co-production efforts, it sounds suspiciously hollow under Trump's Make in America doctrine. Because if everything must be manufactured in America, then where exactly will co-production happen? Is Trump expecting Make in India to happen in Michigan? The contradiction is glaring. Co-production under a policy that bans offshoring? That's not collaboration. That's clever marketing. The White House calls it a framework for defense industrial integration. But integration for whom? For India or for American defense giants who now have a guaranteed market of the world's largest democracy? Under the shadow of tariffs, this pact feels like a business maneuver disguised as diplomacy. America gets to sell, India gets to buy, and everyone gets to talk about shared priorities. Priorities for whom? For India's strategic autonomy or for America's bottom line? Trump's Make in America push has weaponized nationalism into industrial policy. He's invoked the Defense Production Act, ordered companies to produce domestically, and wrapped the flag around every factory floor. But how does that sit with the promises made to India about joint manufacturing? Will every screw, every chip, every circuit in these so-called joint projects still have to trace its origin back to the US? India gets assembly. Will America get profits? Will it be less make in India, more assemble in India, and then pay in dollars? Here is what experts have to say.
In my opinion, no, because we have come a very, very long way insofar as Indo-US strategic defense partnerships are concerned. And let me tell you that if you look back in the last 2 decades or so, India has been continuously engaging with the US for hardware. Also, I must remind you of our basic foundational agreements which have happened: LIMOA, SISMOA, BECA. There are so many things happening where equipment are coming, the speech secrecy equipment or other equipment where we transfer our data, which is very, very sensitive. So all these things cannot happen when you have full confidence between the two countries. So this agreement is a win-win for both of us, and it's a long way we have come, and we have to go a long way insofar as the strategic geopolitical compulsions, geostrategic compulsions are concerned.
Here's the interesting part. New Delhi has made a conscious call to keep commerce and defense on different battlefields. Even as Washington and Delhi still bicker over tariffs, market access, and how many percentage points to slap on steel or semiconductors, the defense framework has been cleanly carved out of that noise. India could have played hardball, linked the 10-year renewal to trade concessions, used it as leverage, but it didn't. Instead, it chose the longer horizon. The message is clear. Tariffs may rise and fall, but trust must stay steady. It's a calculated gamble, separating weapons from wallets to protect the partnership from the volatility of trade wars.
The agreement comes at a particularly tricky time, so that's definitely a lot to ease right into it. But that said, as you mentioned, it's a renewal of the previous agreement. The first such agreement was signed in 2005 for 10 years. In 2015, it was renewed in a different way. Then new elements added to it as the relationship progressed. And now here we are, 2025, again renewed for the 10 years. And there's a lot of emphasis on interoperability, co-development, etc., and so on and so forth. Because again, if you see the last 10 years trajectory, the bilateral relationship has progressed in many dimensions, not just bilaterally, also trilateral and multilateral formats as well, and including the Quad. So while yes, it comes at a particularly tricky time with the trade, the agreement put Trump's pressure on Russian oil, etc., and so on. But that said, it actually shows that despite the friction in the relationship right now, some things are actually functioning as usual. This agreement actually underscores that.
Think about the missed opportunity. India could have tied the 10-year pact to tariff relief. It could have said no new contracts until trade opens up. Instead, it treated the defense deal as strategic, not transactional. But for Washington, everything is transactional. Trump's diplomacy runs on deal sheets, not declarations. And so the result? A one-sided partnership. America gets the business, India gets the burden. And the trade war still very much alive. It's not hard to see the pattern. Trump meets Xi Jinping, rates the meeting 12 out of 10, cuts tariffs on rare earths, and talks about future visits. Then he turns to Pakistan, meets Shehbaz Sharif and Asim Munir twice in the same year, praises their army and opens doors for mineral deals in Balochistan. Pakistan gets attention. China gets truce. India gets a weapons list. When Washington says partnership, what it really means is purchase order. The irony is sharp. While Trump courts Beijing and Islamabad, he tells Delhi that shared security is the cornerstone of democracy. But let's pause the cynicism for a moment, because beneath the hard talk, this deal does carry a silver lining. For once, India isn't walking into a handshake blindfolded. The 10-year Defense Framework Agreement isn't just a photo op. It's a strategic upgrade. It cements India and the US as long-term security partners, locking in a decade of military coordination, intelligence sharing, and joint readiness. It's the kind of pact that says we are not allies by accident, we're allies by design.
POS 87 aircraft or something, for which the RFPs are going to come out very soon. They are going to come here, otherwise they lose. Let me tell you, the world over, everybody is ready and pouncing to come to India and share, whether it is Safran, whether it is General Atomics, whether it is General Electric, whether it is C295 Airbus, everybody. And you saw yesterday, day before yesterday, Sukhoi 30, they are now joining hands for co-production of commercial airliners. So if you say that co-production will not happen, I don't see that happening. But if the business has to move ahead, India is not going to pick up stuff now the way it used to happen before, because the policies are very clear. The DPM manual is out, the defense policy is there, acquisition policy is out. So yes, if they it's a work in progress, let me tell you. It is their interest, they will lose out. India is a big market, there is no doubt. But I do not see imports happening the way they used to happen. And production will happen in India because otherwise we are, just not able to pump in the money which we are sending abroad. But by production in India, Atmanirbharta, the money churns and remains in India. So it plows back into the economy, and that is what is the actual reason for it.
This framework pushes the partnership into a new orbit. From Malabar exercises to maritime surveillance, India's forces now speak the same operational language as America's: interoperable, synchronized, and battle ready. It means if the Indo Pacific heats up from the Taiwan Strait to the Andaman Sea, India won't be watching from the sidelines. It'll be part of the choreography of deterrence.
It would be incorrect to call it as as a sweeping agreement or a dependency, something which builds dependency. As the name says, it's a framework. It's a broad defense cooperation framework. And if you see defense sales, yes, defense sales have considerably increased in the last 2 decades from almost nothing, around 2005, 2008 to we have crossed the 20 billion mark a few years back. And we have signed much bigger deals in the last couple of years for armed high altitude long endurance drones, more P8I long range maritime patrol aircraft in the pipeline, and so on. But that said, this agreement is not about one administration. I guess in the short term, there will be pressure from the Trump administration on India to buy more military hardware. But it's also pertinent to add a point of note of fact here that many things that we are purchasing or we plan to, in the pipeline are something which has been in the pipeline for a very long time.
At its heart, the pact underlines a shared vision, a free, open, rules-based Indo-Pacific where no single power writes the rules alone. In a world tilting toward confrontation, this 10-year defense deal gives India both a safety net and a springboard, a rare combination in geopolitics. To India's credit, New Delhi didn't bend on trade. It refused to open agriculture and MSMEs to US pressure. But by keeping the defense pact separate, it gave Washington an unearned victory, a symbolic partnership without economic reciprocity. The message from America is clear: we'll sell you weapons, not fair trade terms. And that's what makes this so dangerous, because the US can call it cooperation even as it cashes in. Trump's economic nationalism doesn't stop at rhetoric. Tariffs on Indian steel, aluminium, and copper have already pushed up production costs. That bleeds into defense too, because every supply chain link is affected. So even if co-production begins, it's costlier, slower, and riskier. The contradiction deepens. Washington demands co-production, but its own policies make it economically unviable. It's like selling someone a car and charging them for the road. US officials keep repeating phrases like shared priorities and Indo-Pacific security, but beneath those talking points lies a fundamental imbalance of benefit. America's weapons makers, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, see the 10-year framework not as diplomacy but as a 10-year order book. Every shared initiative translates to another export contract. Every joint innovation turns into intellectual property locked in Washington. Defense cooperation, yes, but only one side's industry really profits. India's challenge then is clear: how to turn symbolism into substance. The Make in India dream collides directly with Make in America protectionism. Technology transfer becomes tangled in bureaucracy. Supply chains are blocked by tariffs, and co-production becomes conditional on security approvals, which often mean never. The 10-year pact may look like an open door, but the hinges are on America's side.
Given the Trump administration's priorities and their push for more, say, trade or sales or, say, make in America, etc., that's going to put some strain. We'll have to see how the co-development part of the broader relationship, which we have been talking about for some time now, that we'll have to see how we'll kind of actually take it forward. For instance, the jet engine agreement F414, it's been delayed, which is supposed to be licensed manufactured in India for the LCA, Light Combat Aircraft Mark II. That's actually been pending for a couple of years. So that will be one of the, say, barometers of how the co-development and co-production things move forward.
Meanwhile, Trump's diplomatic calendar tells its own story. He celebrates a truce with Xi. He courts Pakistan for rare earth minerals. He meets Pakistani generals more often than Indian ministers. He lowers tariffs for China, raises them for India, and still calls it partnership. And yet, when the cameras roll, it's all smiles and slogans. Free and open Indo-Pacific, democratic partners, shared vision. The performance is polished, but the script is scripted in Washington. And let's not forget, this deal was signed while India's trade deficit widened, exports plunged, and talks froze. The same administration that taxes Indian goods at 50% signs a 10-year strategic partnership. It's the perfect paradox. Punish at the border, profit at the defense table. Washington knows India won't walk away because the Indo-Pacific equation needs balancing. But what happens when cooperation becomes code for compliance? India must now decide, does it want to be America's partner or America's customer? Because right now, it looks more like the latter. Washington sells the vision of joint manufacturing, but Trump's industrial agenda ensures those jobs stay American. India talks about shared innovation, but the US talks about securing supply chains at home. The Defense Pact may promise co-production, but the machinery of American nationalism runs on a single rule: jobs must stay in the US. Everything else is export packaging. So is America using the defense agreement as a weapons sales contract? The answer seems obvious. The structure is commercial, the tone is transactional, and the policy is one-sided. India provides strategic geography. America provides military hardware. But the profits, they're not shared. And the rhetoric of shared priorities is just the wrapping on a very expensive gift, one India is still paying for. 10 years of strategic partnership sounds powerful, but look at what's missing: trade balance, tariff relief, real co-production, and equitable innovation. The US may call it a framework, but it functions like a franchisee. A 10-year window for America to dominate India's defense acquisitions while keeping its own economy protected. And the irony? The world's two largest democracies are locked in a tariff war even as they sign a defense pact meant to symbolize unity. Perhaps that's the greatest contradiction of all: a partnership built on mistrust, a friendship fenced by tariffs, a cooperation designed for one side to profit. The India-US 10-year defense pact might look like a strategic success, but peel away the slogans and you see what it really is: a weapons sales contract with diplomatic packaging. Trump gets his Make in America moment. America's defense firms get a decade of business. And India gets promises, still waiting for co-production to begin. So the next time Washington says shared priorities, Delhi should ask, shared for whom? If America truly believes in co-production, let's prove it on Indian soil. Until then, this isn't partnership, it's procurement politics. Because in Trump's world, every handshake hides a contract and every framework hides a price tag. The ink may be dry on the 10-year pact, but the question remains: is this really defense cooperation or just defense commerce in disguise? Thank you for watching Statecraft.